My name is Vivian Preston, and I'm 32 years old. Last March, my parents threw my younger sister a $12,000 gender reveal party that looked like something out of a luxury magazine. Helicopter dropping confetti from 300 feet, professional catering with steak and lobster flown in from Raleigh, a live DJ, a professional photographer snapping every angle, and 85 guests, most of whom I barely recognized. 6 weeks later, I announced my own pregnancy at a quiet family dinner. My mom looked straight across the table at me and said, without even blinking, "Don't expect the same. You married beneath us." My dad never lifted his eyes from his plate. My sister immediately started talking about her Pottery Barn nursery wallpaper, like I hadn't just shared the biggest news of my life. And my grandmother, Lorraine Whitfield, set her fork down slowly, deliberately, and stared at my mother for what felt like forever without saying a single word. I didn't argue. I didn't cry at the table. I just picked up my keys, took my husband Marcus's hand, and we walked out. But my grandmother had been watching, not just that night, for 30 full years. And 7 months later, at a baby shower my best friend had to throw because my own family couldn't be bothered, she handed me a sealed envelope. That envelope brought my parents to my front porch on their knees, mascara running, begging for forgiveness, and for something they had always assumed was already theirs. Before I tell you exactly what was inside that envelope, if this story already feels like it's hitting somewhere deep in your chest, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. It really helps these videos reach more people who need to hear them. Subscribe if you want more real-life stories about family, boundaries, and quiet love that waits decades to speak. And drop a comment below. Where are you watching from right now, and what time is it where you are? I read every single one. Promise. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Let me paint the picture of that gender reveal for you, because it wasn't just a party, it was a coronation. The event was held at a rented 200-acre estate just outside town. The wraparound porch alone was longer than my entire street. My father had hired a helicopter to drop colored confetti from 300 feet in the air. Catering was full steak and lobster from a private chef in Raleigh. There was a DJ spinning a playlist that probably cost more than my monthly rent. 85 guests milling around with champagne flutes and little pink and blue favors. I stood near the back table next to the sweet tea station, 4 weeks pregnant myself, though I hadn't told a soul yet. My stomach was already turning, part morning sickness, part something heavier I couldn't name. My father clinked his glass and stood in front of the crowd. His voice cracked just enough to sound emotional, but I knew it was rehearsed. "This is what family is about," he said. "Brooke, Tyler, you've given us everything to be proud of." 85 people clapped like they were at a rock concert. The helicopter banked low. Pink confetti exploded across that perfect blue sky, and the crowd screamed like it was the 4th of July. My mother pulled my sister Brooke into a hug so tight the photographer got 6 different frames of it. "My perfect girl," she whispered, loud enough for the front row to hear. I clapped too. I smiled. I held my plastic cup of lemonade until my palms stung. But across the lawn, my grandmother Lorraine sat alone at a corner table with a paper plate she hadn't touched. She wasn't watching Brooke. She wasn't watching the helicopter. She was looking directly at me. Her face was calm, patient, like she was memorizing something she already knew she'd need later. I looked away first. 6 weeks later, Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Garner. The kind of suburban neighborhood where everyone knows everyone else's lawn care schedule. I had the ultrasound photo in my purse. Marcus drove. He squeezed my knee in the driveway and said, "Whatever happens in there, we're good." His voice was steady, but I could feel the tension in his fingers. The dining room smelled like pot roast and my mother's lavender candle. Brooke was already seated, scrolling through nursery paint swatches on her phone, showing Tyler something about cloud gray versus grayish. My father was carving meat at the head of the table. My grandmother sat at the opposite end, hands folded neatly over a cloth napkin. I waited until everyone's plates were full. Then I slid the ultrasound across the table to my mom. "We're expecting," I said, voice shaking just a little. "Due in January." My mother picked up the photo and held it at arm's length like it was a receipt she didn't remember signing. 3 full seconds of silence. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. "Well," she finally said. She set the photo face down on the table like it was nothing. "Don't expect the same. You married beneath us." My father kept carving steak, didn't even look up. Brooke glanced at the ultrasound for half a second and said, "Oh, congrats." "Did I show you the wallpaper I picked for the nursery? It's Pottery Barn." Under the table, Marcus took my hand. His fingers, those same hands that build furniture strong enough to hold 400 pounds, were trembling. I felt every shake against my palm. At the head of the table, my grandmother set her fork down slowly, deliberately. She didn't speak. She just looked at my mother for a long, long time, the way you look at someone when you've finally stopped hoping they'll surprise you. Nobody else noticed, but I did. Marcus and I sat in the parking lot of our apartment for 20 minutes after that dinner, engine off, windows down. He held my hand in his lap and said nothing, because Marcus has always known when silence is the only honest thing left. I cried quietly, the kind of crying that leaks out sideways when you've been clenching your jaw for 2 straight hours. It wasn't the first time my family had made me feel small. It was the 1,000th time in a pattern so old it had its own rhythm. Let me take you back even further so you understand how deep this went. When I was 16, I won first place in the county essay competition. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. That same week, Brooke, 12 at the time, placed third in a swim meet. The whole family drove 4 hours to Asheville to cheer her on. I found out about it later from a photo stuck to the refrigerator. When I graduated college on a full scholarship with 0 debt, my parents showed up 40 minutes late and left early because Brooke had a recital. My wedding, 30 guests. My parents contributed $1,500, and my mother complained about the napkin color for 3 straight weeks. Brooke's wedding 6 months earlier. 200 guests, $45,000, a live band, and a champagne tower that touched the ceiling. Marcus wiped the tears off my cheek with his thumb that night in the parking lot. "Vive," he said quietly, "you don't owe them an explanation for who you married." He was right. Marcus runs his own custom woodworking business. He clears between $85 and $100 and $10,000 a year. People fly in from Charlotte to commission pieces from him. He just finished a $40,000 interior project for a boutique hotel. He is not beneath anyone. But my mother measured worth in last names and country club invitations, and Marcus's last name was Reed, not Ashford. I didn't know it then, but someone had been keeping score, every slight, every date, every quiet absence, for 30 years. 2 weeks after that dinner, I called my grandmother on her landline. She still refuses to own a cell phone. She calls them tracking devices with manners. It was our usual weekly check-in. I asked about her garden. She asked about my nausea. Then her voice changed. "Your mother called me yesterday," she said. "Told me I shouldn't drive so far anymore. Said I'm too old to be making that 2-hour trip to see you. Said the highway is dangerous for someone my age." I gripped the kitchen counter so hard my knuckles went white. My grandmother had been driving to see me every single month for 6 years, rain or shine. My mother had never once offered to drive her. Suddenly, she was worried about safety. "Grandma, are you going to listen to her?" I asked. A long pause, then in a voice dry as August dust, "I'm 78 years old, sweetheart. I listen to whoever I choose." But the next week, my cousin Dana told me my mother had told the entire extended family a completely different story. That I was the one who told Grandma to stop visiting because I was paranoid about the inheritance and didn't want Grandma influenced. She had flipped the entire narrative. I was the schemer. I was the one pushing Grandma away. That scared me more than any insult ever had. My mother wasn't just choosing Brooke. She was willing to rewrite reality to keep me in my place. My best friend Jeline was the one who finally broke the silence about how far it had gone. She called me on a Wednesday morning. I could hear her sneakers squeaking on the hospital linoleum. She was on break. "I need to tell you something and you're going to be angry," she said. "Go ahead. Your mom was at the women's brunch at church last Sunday, 12 women at the table. She told every single one of them that Marcus has no health insurance, that he does odd jobs for cash, and that you married him because you needed somewhere to live." I set my coffee down so hard it sloshed. Everything my mother said was a lie. Marcus carries full business insurance. His clients sign contracts. He pays his taxes quarterly. He is a craftsman with a 6-month waiting list. My mother has been to his workshop. She's seen the client list pinned to the wall. She chose to lie anyway. That night I told Marcus in the garage while he was sanding a headboard. He stopped the belt sander, pulled off his safety glasses, and looked at me. "How many people?" he asked. 12. He nodded once. Then he said the sentence that cracked something open inside me. "Vive, I'm not going to ask you to cut off your family. That's your call and I'll stand behind whatever you choose. But I will not let our child grow up thinking their father is something to be ashamed of." That's my line. I stood in the doorway watching sawdust float in the light behind him, and I understood. This wasn't just about my feelings anymore. Marcus had drawn a boundary, and he was right. The question was what I was going to do with mine. The answer came sideways, not through confrontation, but through a piece of mail I wasn't supposed to see. I drove out to Grandma Lorraine's beach house in the Outer Banks for my usual bi-weekly visit. She was in the kitchen making her famous lemon pound cake, the one she'd been baking since before I was born. I was sorting her mail because her arthritis made it hard to tear envelopes. Halfway through the stack, I stopped cold. A thick envelope from a mortgage brokerage in Raleigh, addressed not to my grandmother, but to Richard Preston, care of her address. I held it up. "Grandma, why is Dad getting mail here?" She didn't turn from the counter. "Your father came by last week, brought paperwork, wants me to sign off on a refinance. Says he needs the house as collateral to expand his hardware stores." I set the envelope down like it was burning my fingers. My father ran 3 hardware stores across Johnston County. I knew the expansion had stalled, supply chain issues, contractor disputes, but I had no idea he was leveraged enough to need $1 million beach house as a backstop. "Did you sign anything?" I asked. "I told him I'd think about it. He left without hugging me." She turned around, wiped her hands on her apron, and looked at me with eyes that had seen everything. "Vivian, you think I don't see what's happening? I see everything. I just haven't decided what to do about it yet." She had already decided. I just didn't know it. Let me pause here for a second. I know some of you are watching and thinking, why didn't you just confront them right then? I get it. But when you grow up in a family where every act of self-defense gets relabeled as disrespect, you learn to pick your moment. And my moment hadn't come yet. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself and your future child, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. The humiliations kept coming, quieter now but sharper. I was standing in line at Bean and Barrel downtown, 5 months pregnant, when an old coworker tapped me on the shoulder. "Oh my God, Vivian." Brooke's gender reveal was so fun, that helicopter insane, she looked amazing. I blinked. "What gender reveal?" Her face cycled through confusion, realization, then pity. The pity hurt worst. "You weren't there. I wasn't invited." She looked at her shoes. "I'm so sorry, I just assumed." I smiled, ordered my decaf, walked to my car, and let it hit me. 85 people in my own town had known about my sister's party. My mother's church friends, my father's business contacts, neighbors, and I, her only sister. Found out from a stranger at a coffee counter. I called my mother that afternoon, voice even. "Mom, I just found out about the gender reveal. I wasn't invited." "Oh honey, I thought Brooke sent you something." "Maybe the mail got lost. It was an Evite, Mom, through an app." Silence. Then the pivot she had perfected over decades. "Don't make this about you, Vivian, you always do this." She hung up. 3 days later, Jolene sent me screenshots, 47 photos on Facebook. Album titled "The Most Magical Day" with a pink heart emoji. Brooke glowing in white, Tyler's arm around her. The helicopter mid-drop, my parents beaming, arms linked with the Ashfords. Caption, blessed beyond measure. Thank you Mom and Dad for the most magical day. Best family ever. She tagged everyone except me. In 47 photos and 300 words of gratitude, I did not exist. I scrolled to the comments. My Aunt Patty asked, "Where was Vivian?" My mother replied 14 minutes later, "She wasn't feeling well. I was perfectly healthy." I was 4 weeks pregnant, and at home eating leftover pasta because nobody had told me there was a party. Marcus looked over my shoulder that night, studied the album for a long time, then locked the screen and set the phone face down. "They didn't just forget you, Vive, they erased you." He was right. And being erased only works if you let it. My father called the following week, something he almost never did. "Vivian, your mom says you're upset about the party." I wasn't upset, Dad. I was excluded. "Look, you have to understand, Brooke is in a different position. Tyler's family is influential. We needed to present a certain image. It was important for business. I'm your daughter too, Dad." A pause. "I know that, but Marcus, he's a good man. I'm sure he's just not Tyler Ashford. The world runs on connections, Vivian." That's reality. I let 5 full seconds of silence stretch. Is that what family is, Dad? A connection to leverage? Don't be dramatic, we love you both the same. Click. Marcus was across the room marking walnut for a bookshelf commission. He looked at me. I repeated the words. He set his pencil down. The same. 45 grand for one wedding, 1,500 for the other. A helicopter for one baby, not even a phone call for the other. That's the same. 7 months of silence followed. No texts. No check-ins, no requests for sonogram photos, nothing, until the day the deed disappeared from my grandmother's name. Summer settled in. My belly grew. Marcus finished the crib, hand-carved white oak with dovetailed joints and a rocking mechanism he designed himself. He set it in the nursery and ran his palm along the rail like he was greeting an old friend. I kept driving to the Outer Banks every 2 weeks. Those 2-hour trips became my exhale, windows down, radio low, empty highway. One Saturday in July, the house was dark when I pulled up. Neighbor Mrs. Cooper waved me over. "Your grandma went to Wilmington this morning, said she had paperwork to handle." Paperwork. I noticed a business card on the kitchen shelf later. Henderson and Cole, Estate and Property Law, Wilmington. I didn't ask. I assumed it was routine for a 78-year-old woman. I was wrong. My grandmother never did anything routine. The next visit she cooked. While rolling biscuit dough with her arthritic hands, she started asking very specific questions about Marcus. Health insurance, lease on the workshop, client list, shipping. I finally asked why. She dusted flour off her palms. "I just want to know my granddaughter is taken care of." Then she looked at a photo on my phone of Marcus bent over that white oak crib, sawdust on his forearms. She stared at it for a long time. "Your grandfather built our kitchen table with his own hands. 52 years, that table still stands." She looked up. "Marcus is a good man." She said it like a verdict, not a compliment. A week later, she was waiting on the porch when I arrived, unusual. Jaw set. "Your father was here Tuesday," she said before I even closed the car door. Brought a folder full of refinance documents. Sat in my kitchen and said, "Mom, it's a family investment. Just sign and I'll handle the rest." "What did you say?" I said I'd think about it. He left without hugging me, didn't ask about my hip. She rocked the swing once. Then your mother called the next day, sweet as syrup. "Mama, Richard is so stressed. Don't you trust your own son? We'll keep the house safe, I promise." My grandmother turned to me, eyes sharp. "I will not let anyone turn this house into a line of credit. Your grandfather and I poured the foundation ourselves in 1972. I was 24, 8 months pregnant with your mother, mixing concrete in July heat." She looked straight at me. "Vivian, I've made my decision. It's just not the one your father wants." I didn't ask what it was. I wish I had. "If your parents were trying to use your grandmother's home as collateral while telling the whole town your husband wasn't good enough, what would you do? Drop your guess in the comments right now. I'll wait. Things escalated at the 4th of July barbecue. My parents throw one every year, 40 guests, red, white, and blue tablecloths, ribs on the smoker since dawn. Marcus almost didn't let me go, but Grandma would be there, so we went. The moment we walked into the backyard, the temperature dropped. My mother introduced Brooke and Tyler by full name and family pedigree, then turned to us and said, "And that's Vivian and her husband." She didn't say Marcus's name. In front of 40 people, she introduced one son-in-law by bloodline and the other with an ellipsis. Later, when Brooke showed off photos of her $25,000 Italian wallpaper nursery, someone asked about mine. "My husband is building the crib himself," I said. Silence. My mother filled it. "Well, isn't that resourceful?" After the fireworks, she gathered everyone for the family photo. She arranged the lineup herself, Dad in the center. Brooke on one side with Tyler behind her, the Ashfords flanking. I stepped forward. My mother held up her palm like a crossing guard. "Oh, honey, we'll do another one with everyone after. This is just the immediate group." I was her immediate family. Her firstborn daughter, 6 months pregnant, standing 6 feet away. She waved me off like I was a guest who had wandered into the frame. The camera clicked. There was never a second photo. 40 people saw it. My grandmother sat on the porch swing at the far end, clear line of sight to the entire scene. Hands folded, face perfectly still. Marcus was already at the car when I got there. "We're not coming back here," he said. In the side mirror, I saw my grandmother stand up from the swing, watching our taillights disappear. She looked like someone who had just finished deliberating. The phone rang at 10 that night. "Grandma," her voice was low and steady, but there was a tremor of restraint underneath. "Vivian, I saw what happened today. I watched your mother push you out of a photograph in front of 40 people. I watched your father laugh at your husband's profession. I watched your sister act like you were a stranger at your own family's table, and I have been watching variations of this for 30 years. I couldn't speak. "I'm done being quiet about it," she said. "I've made up my mind." She hung up. 4 months later, I found out exactly what that meant. November, 8 months pregnant. Jolene had thrown my baby shower at Clementine's coffee shop. 18 people, lemon cake her mom baked, flowers from Jolene's garden, a banner that said "Baby Reed" in yellow felt. No helicopter. No DJ, just love. My grandmother arrived with Jolene, carrying a sealed cream-colored envelope. After the last gift, she touched my elbow. "Come outside with me for a minute." On the porch, she handed it to me. My hands were shaking before I even tore the flap. Inside, a notarized deed of transfer for the beach house, Outer Banks, appraised at $1.2 million. New owners, Vivian Preston and Marcus Reed. 2. A savings account statement opened in 1994, the year I was born. Monthly contributions, compounding interest, 32 years of growth. Current balance, $4.3 million. 3. A 4-page handwritten letter in her careful cursive. I couldn't breathe. She took my hand. "I opened a matching account the day each of you was born. Brooke's account, your parents withdrew the entire balance when she turned 18. They said it was for college. It went to her car, her sorority, her wedding fund. I let it happen because I thought they'd make it right. They didn't. And yours, I never told them it existed. Some things are worth protecting in silence." I read the letter that night while Marcus slept beside me. Every entry was dated. June 14, 2012, your high school graduation. I sat in the 3rd row. Your parents sat in the back and left before your name was called. I stayed. September 2016, your first apartment. You carried your own boxes. Your parents drove Brooke to orientation at Chapel Hill the same weekend. March 2023, your wedding. Your mother complained about the napkins for 3 weeks. I danced with Marcus. He held my hand like I was glass. That's when I knew he was the one. March 2025, 85 guests for your sister's gender reveal. 0 for you, I counted. The last paragraph. Vivian, I have loved you the way your parents should have, quietly and without condition. This house and this money are not a reward, they are a correction. You were never beneath anyone. You were always the one who showed up. 2 weeks later, my father called my grandmother. She recounted the conversation word for word. "Mom, I've got the refinance documents finalized. When can I bring them for your signature?" "You can't, Richard. The house is no longer in my name. I transferred the deed to Vivian and Marcus. It's notarized, recorded, and filed. It's done. You gave it to her. That house was never yours, Richard. It was mine. Your father and I built it with our hands. And now it belongs to someone who never once asked me for a thing." He hung up on her. Within the hour, my phone started buzzing. 14 missed calls from my mother in 2 hours. I let them all go to voicemail. They came on a Sunday. Marcus and I were painting the nursery sage green. The doorbell rang at 3. My mother stood on the porch with mascara smudged. My father held a brown paper bag containing an old family photo from when I was 5. Nostalgia as a negotiation tool. My mother dropped to her knees on the concrete. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Married beneath us, I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't mean it." I looked down at her. "Which part are you sorry for, Mom? The words or losing the house?" That silence told me everything. Marcus appeared behind me, sawdust on his forearms, paint on his shirt, 6'2" of quiet strength. I set the boundary clearly, calmly. Every visit scheduled in advance. No drop-ins. No speaking about Marcus, his work, his worth behind our backs ever. First violation and the next visit gets pushed back a month. They agreed. They had no choice. News traveled fast in our small North Carolina town. My father had to sell one of his 3 hardware stores to cover the gap. My mother stopped attending women's brunch. Brooke called me a week later, voice stripped of its usual brightness. We met at the same coffee shop. She admitted she had been selfish and comfortable. She wanted to try if I'd let her. "Trying is showing up consistently," I told her. "Not when it's convenient," she nodded. It was small, but it was a start. A week before Christmas, I drove Grandma to the beach house, now ours. We sat on the porch in the Adirondack, chairs my grandfather built in 1985. Marcus had resanded and sealed them without being asked. Grandma looked out at the winter-gray ocean. "Your grandfather bought this place in 1972 for $28,000. I told him he was crazy. He said, "One day our grandchild will sit right here and watch the same water." She turned to me. "This is my house, sweetheart. You are my home." There's a difference. Margaret Alina Reed was born January 14th at 6:42 a.m. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with her father's dark eyes and her great-grandmother's grip. Marcus held her first and cried without making a sound. My grandmother came the next day. When I placed Margaret in her arms, 4 generations hummed a lullaby in one small hospital room. My parents came the following Saturday at exactly 2 p.m. On my terms. My mother ran her fingers along the oak crib Marcus built and said quietly, "Thank you for this." "It's beautiful," Marcus nodded. "You're welcome, Mrs. Preston." It was a first step, small, real. I didn't walk away from this story as a hero. I walked away as someone who finally learned where she ends and other people begin. My parents haven't transformed overnight. Change at 58 and 60 is slow and incomplete. But the rules are in place, and I enforce them. My grandmother spends 2 weeks a month with us now. Her vascular dementia is progressing slowly, but she still remembers every line of the letter she wrote me. It's a Tuesday morning, and I'm sitting on the porch of the beach house. Margaret is asleep in the oak crib Marcus carried out here so she could nap in the salt air. The ocean keeps its patient rhythm, arriving, retreating, arriving again. Inside, the kitchen table my grandfather built in 1970 still stands steady. On the wall hangs a new framed photo, my grandmother holding Margaret on the day they met. Both of them looking at the camera like they've known each other for 100 years. Marcus is outside fixing the porch stairs in the same flannel he wore the night he sat with me in that parking lot and held my hand without saying a word. Some men fill a room by talking. Marcus fills it by staying. If you're the one in your family who always shows up but never gets seen, someone is watching. I promise you, they're just waiting for the right moment. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I mean that. If this story hit close to home, leave a comment. Would you have forgiven my parents, or would you have kept your distance? There's no right answer, just yours. Hit like if you believe quiet love is the strongest kind. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. I've linked a few more in the description I think you'll connect with. Take care of yourselves, and take care of the people who take care of you.